Welcome back. This video is about S3 bucket policies. S3 bucket policies are JSON-based. You define a bucket policy in a JSON document. The following are the main elements of an S3 policy document. Effect. There are two values for effect element: allow or deny. Allow allows the action. On the other hand, deny denies the action. Action. For the actions element, we mention what set of API calls are allowed or denied. For example, getObject. Resources. For the resources, we provide buckets and objects ARNs that are controlled by the policy document. Principal. For the principal element, we provide which account or user this policy is applied to. Condition. The condition element is used to specify conditions that determine when a policy is in effect. Use a null condition operator to check if a condition key is absent at the time of authorization. For example, this condition checks for a missing header. The question is when to use the S3 bucket policy instead of IAM permissions to control the S3 access. As we discussed in the previous video, that there are two ways to secure S3 access. One is user-based, and the other is resource-based. When using resource-based access control, S3 bucket policy is used to control access to S3 bucket. Use the S3 bucket policy when you need to grant public access to a bucket. You need to force objects to be encrypted at upload time. You need to grant cross-account access. Let's talk about S3 default encryption versus bucket policies. One way to force encryption is to use a bucket policy and refuse any API call to put an S3 object without encryption headers. Another way is to use the default encryption option in S3. Please note that AWS encrypts all new objects by default. Now S3 automatically applies server-side encryption, SSE S3, for each new object unless you specify a different encryption option. In other words, SSE S3 is now the new base level of encryption when no other encryption type is specified. Please note that the bucket policy is evaluated first before default encryption. For example, as you can see in the screenshot, the following bucket policy denies permission to upload an object unless the request includes the XAMZ server-side encryption header to request server-side encryption. That way, you make sure your data uploads are encrypted using only Amazon S3 managed keys.